Welcome in. It's time for another edition of the Morning Espresso, kicking off a new week on the SDH Network. All the soccer news you need to know for Monday, May 5th, presented as always by our friends at Oglethorpe University, Atlanta's premier undergraduate learning experience and soccer powerhouse. I'm Jason Longshore. Let's start with Atlanta United from the weekend on Saturday. It was not a fun day at the office. Atlanta United scored first, had some changes to the structure of the team. The 4-2-3-1 looked more like a 4-4-2 with Miguel Almiron high up the field, kind of as a second forward. He got the goal off of I thought, cross from Brooks Lennon. He said afterwards it was a shot. Almiron's in the position to put it away. Moranchuk had opened up the space with a ball to the left to Amador. His cross was punched away to Lennon. Lennon then fired it back in, shooting, as he told us. I gave him credit. I thought it was a cross. And Almiron puts it in. It's 1-0 at that point in the 21st minute. From that point on, Atlanta was outshot 10-2 and had around 30% of the ball. They lost control of the game after that and only created a couple of chances after that. And all of the chances were coming from the fullbacks, from Lennon and from Amador in this match. Got nothing centrally and got nothing in terms of possession. With the way the team was structured, they had to keep possession to be able to either build on the lead or hold on to the lead. And eventually, felt like it had been coming for a while. Nashville found the goal from a set piece. It was a nice volley from Daniel Lovitz, who got way too open, and that made it 1-1. A frustrating day because you get the first goal and feel like maybe things can build from there, and they just never did, and it completely got away from you. So how do you take lessons from that and move on to Chicago next week? Is the formational shape slash alignment. I think we're getting way too hung up on positioning and shapes and formations at the moment because I didn't see a demonstrable difference here with how this one went. I think it's down to individuals making plays, and it's very much down to something that Ronnie Dyla has talked about a lot: confidence, and especially confidence on the ball. It felt like, for whatever reason, as Nashville started to ratchet up their pressure, Atlanta United had no confidence in keeping possession, and they just couldn't. And when you give away that much of the ball for that long of a period of time, chances are you're going to get punished for it. And you were. Now, after the Nashville goal, it felt somewhat even, but still Nashville from the goal that Atlanta scored on, Nashville outshot Atlanta 10-2. And there's really no way around that. So we see what happens next week in Chicago, and we see what happens this week in training. We will have Training Ground Dispatch this week to get you ready for Atlanta United's trip to Chicago. Bounce around MLS real quick here on the Morning Espresso. Sunday night soccer, the LA Galaxy, another team that is snake bitten at the moment. They have not won in the league this season. They lost 1-0 to Sporting Kansas City. They didn't allow a shot. You're probably hearing that and you're wondering, how did they lose? Well, it was an own goal from Maya Yoshida. To make it worse, the LA Galaxy lost both of their star wingers, Joseph Paintsil and Gabriel Pec. They exited the match 5 minutes apart in the second half with injury. It's not a good time for Greg Vanney and the LA Galaxy at the moment. Let's go to Chicago, since Atlanta United will be going there next Saturday. Christopher Kupp's US U17 national team defender. He became the youngest starter in Chicago Fire history, almost 17 years old. He helped Chicago get a scoreless draw with Orlando. Chris Brady, Chicago goalkeeper, sent off in the 36th minute, but Chicago was able to hold on and get a scoreless draw. So no Brady for Chicago this weekend against Atlanta. New England Revolution. Cameron Meyer of Soccer America made a good point in his column that comes out on Sundays, recapping the Saturday games in MLS. The turnaround for New England, and it started here in Atlanta. Caleb Porter made the decision to move to a 3-4-1-2. Now, what that did, it's not about the shape specifically. It's about, what does it do? It puts Carlos Heel in the middle. He's the one underneath the two forwards. And it all starts to click into place. It's about the roles and the responsibilities more than a rigid shape here. And it's the same conversation that we're having about Atlanta United. Carlos Heel being in that free role and then responding to it and creating opportunities out of it. That's what has made things work. He's got options around him. He's finding those options. He is the playmaker for that team, and they are responding. They are playing very, very well at the moment. Vancouver, they're unbeaten in 10. They beat RSL 2-1. They are your top team in the Supporters Shield, followed by Columbus, 2 points back. Philadelphia, 2 more points back. Cincinnati's tied with Philadelphia on 22 points. Miami is on 21. They bounced back with a win over the Red Bulls on the weekend. Bottom five. LA Galaxy and Montreal are at the bottom on 3 points. Toronto is in 28th on 7 points. Atlanta and Houston are on 10 points. That's not where Atlanta United expected to be at this stage of the season. Let's bounce over to the NWSL. There was talk just a few weeks ago about separation is bad. There's some teams that are starting to run away from everybody. This is not good for the league. Well, that's not the case anymore. Kansas City, Orlando, and Washington, they had 13 wins in their first 15 matches combined. The two losses being Washington to Kansas City and Orlando to Washington. Well, those three, that's all crashed back. The Current and the Spirit have both lost their last 2 games. Orlando has lost 2 of its last 3 games. The top 8 teams in the league are only separated by 4 points. Right now, the Shield in the NWSL, Kansas City and Orlando are tied for first with 15 points. San Diego's next with 13, Gotham on 12, Portland on 12. Bottom 5 in the NWSL, Chicago and Utah are at the bottom with 4 points. Houston's on 7. Racing Louisville is on 8 along with Bay FC. Let's go to the USL. The opening of Centerville Bank Stadium drew an overflow crowd of 10,700 for Rhode Island FC's scoreless draw with San Antonio FC. Big time congrats to our friend Michael Parkhurst and everybody at Rhode Island FC for opening their stadium with such a great crowd. Let's go to the Club World Cup. We might have some news tomorrow. A verdict is expected in the Club Leon legal dispute with FIFA over their spot in the Club World Cup being pulled away from them because they are part of the same ownership group as Pachuca, who's also in the tournament. The Court of Arbitration for Sport said today that they aim to give the urgent verdict of its judges tomorrow in Switzerland. If that ruling is upheld for FIFA, then FIFA is preparing to replace Leon with a one-off playoff match between LAFC and Club America. If Leon gets to get their spot back, then they will play Chelsea in Atlanta on June 16th, the first match of the tournament at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Otherwise, the winner of that playoff game between LAFC and Club America would then play Chelsea in the tournament. It's LAFC because they lost to Club Leon in that CONCACAF Champions League final, and it's Club America who could get the spot because they're the highest ranked team in CONCACAF that is currently not going to the tournament. All right, we're going to bounce around the world here on the Morning Espresso. We'll go to Germany. Vincent Kompany has brought the Bundesliga title back to Bayern. They drew on the weekend. A late goal for RB Leipzig denied Bayern celebrating after the game. That was a 3-3 draw. But then Leverkusen drew 2-2 with Freiburg. So that gave Bayern the win. They had to watch it on TV and celebrate afterwards. Harry Kane, very much celebrating. 694 matches for club and country without a single trophy until now. Big time congrats to Harry Kane for finally getting that. Also in the Bundesliga, Wolfsburg has fired Ralf Hasenhüttl 2 games before the end of the season, 8 games without a win for Wolfsburg and Hasenhüttl. He is out of the job. In Italy, Pisa, they have been promoted back to the Serie A for the first time in 34 years. Wild celebrations. Pisa lost at Bari, but Spezia in third place also lost. Pisa's guaranteed the second spot in the second division. They get the automatic promotion to Serie A. First time since 1991 that the Arena Garibaldi, which is pretty much in the shadow of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, first time since 1991 that Serie A will be back at the Arena Garibaldi. And also with Pisa, they are coached by World Cup winning forward Filippo Inzaghi, the older brother of Inter Milan manager Simone Inzaghi. So the Inzaghis, very, very happy at the moment. Pisa back in the Serie A. Al Ahly in the Asian Champions League, the Saudi Al Ahly, they won the Champions League for the first time. They're the third Saudi club to lift the trophy. They beat Japan's Kawasaki Frontale 2-0. Kawasaki had knocked out Cristiano Ronaldo's Al Nasser in the semifinals. Roberto Firmino was named the AFC Champions League MVP. He assisted on both goals in the final. Ivan Toney, 26 goals and 5 assists in 39 appearances for Al Ahly. Riyad Mahrez, all featured in the big win, and they are the new Saudi club to win the AFC Champions League. Let's go to France. Ligue 1 and DAZN, they have settled their broadcast rights dispute. Whole bunch of negotiations over a few months for these two. Now the French league can look for other broadcasters or launch their own DTC, direct to consumer streaming service. The Zone withheld funds. They were disappointed about subscriber uptake. They were disappointed in the league's efforts to combat piracy. I think they ended up paying the money now, and the league can now negotiate with new broadcast partners. So the deal is broken with DAZN. There's not a lot of interest, and DAZN was the only one who really had the interest in giving the league anything resembling the amount of money that they wanted ahead of this past season. So now the league is reportedly prioritizing the creation of its own streaming platform, and they got to jump that from scratch. Uh, it's going to be a mess in France in terms of TV domestically. We'll see if that gets solved for the domestic audience and also if it affects the international audience. Right now, for example, you can watch Liga on BN Sport here in the United States. Will that continue, or will France be able to take all of their rights in house, kind of like what MLS has done? And is that the right move for Liga? We're going to all find out together, aren't we? Let's go to England. One more in France. Sorry. Paris FC. They are returning to the French top flight. So Pisa gets back in after a long absence, 34 years. Paris FC tops that, 46 years since they've been in the top flight in France. They are back. And if you've seen the pictures of the stadiums, they're literally across the street from PSG. So that rivalry will be a lot of fun in Liga. Let's go to England. Burnley. They didn't win the championship. They did get to 100 points. First time you've had two teams at 100 points in the English championship. But they did clinch their promotion, and they are very happy about it, and they had quite the party. On Saturday, they were all singing Natasha Bedingfield's 2004 hit Unwritten, and she was there. It became the unofficial anthem of the promotion campaign. She performed it for the fans at Turf Moor, 3-1 final day victory over Millwall for Burnley. And then she was also in the locker room with the squad. The squad was singing it. You probably know the song, even if you say you don't. You've heard it. Everybody in the world has. It was the theme for The Hills, the reality TV show on MTV, the spinoff of Laguna Beach. And I never thought I'd be talking about Laguna Beach and The Hills and Natasha Bedingfield on the Morning Espresso, but here we are on May 5th, 2025. The videos of her singing with the squad, very, very funny. Very cool. Burnley back in the Premier League, and they've got a new mascot, I guess. Brazil, Palmeiras, they go to the top of the Brasileiro with a 1-0 win on the road over Vasco da Gama. Let's go to Argentina. You got the playoffs set for the Apertura. They haven't always used the format with playoffs like this, but here we are in Argentina. These should be a lot of fun to watch. One game playoffs, higher seed hosts. Argentinos Juniors hosting Instituto, our old friend Matias Gallardo with Instituto. That's 1 versus 8 in the first group. San Lorenzo hosting Tigre in the 4 versus 5 match. River Plate hosting Barraca Central in the 2 versus 7. Racing hosting Platense 3 versus 6. Santiago Sosa just celebrated a birthday. And Racing in the 3rd spot in the first group. In the other group, Rosario Central, they won it. That is Franco Ibarra's current group, and he just has had a great season for Rosario Central. They won the group. They will host Estudiantes. Huracan will host Riestra. That's 4 versus 5. Boca Juniors finished second. They will host Lanús, another old friend, Marcelino Moreno. And Independiente, 3rd place. They will host Independiente Rivadavia, the 6th place team. Going to be a fun ride in Argentina in playoffs. I can't wait to see what the reaction is on TIC and El Gráfico and on all of the Argentine outlets that I try to keep up with. In Mexico, playoffs getting started as well. You've had the play-in rounds. They're done. Monterrey, they knocked out Pumas, Martin Di Michelis and Efrain Juarez, the two managers. They got into it after the final whistle. Both were sent off. The arguments continued outside the locker rooms. Everybody's talking about it in Mexico right now. Monterrey got the final spot. They will play Toluca. That's the 1 versus 8. Club America, the 2 versus 7. America's second, they will play Pachuca. 3 versus 6, it's Cruz Azul versus Leon. 4 versus 5, it's Tigres versus Necaxa. Now, these are over 2 legs in Mexico, with the higher seed hosting the second leg. Women's Super League, London City Lionesses. They are the only independent team now to make it to the Women's Super League after Michelle Kang's team won promotion to the top flight. No men's team with London City. They broke away from Millwall years ago. So no men's team attached to the club. They are the only independent team in the Women's Super League next year. We'll look ahead quickly to the Champions League this week in Europe. Barcelona, they are getting Robert Lewandowski at least back in the squad list. He's missed 2 weeks with a left thigh injury. Hansi Flick rested nearly everybody. Barcelona won 2-1 at Valladolid in La Liga on Saturday. Inter, they are hoping Lautaro Martinez can get back for this game. It didn't look like he would after the game. Confidence is growing, though. Photos, videos of him training in the gym on Sunday. He could be back in training this afternoon with Inter. Inzaghi's assistant coach said Lautaro will do the impossible to be there. Inter won over Hellas Verona. They're 3 points back in Serie A from Napoli. PSG, they're hoping Ousmane Dembele will be fit to start. Luis Enrique rested most of his top players in PSG's 2-1 loss at Strasbourg. PSG's got the title won, so the game was completely meaningless for them. Arsenal, they can't win the title in the Premier League. That's gone. So they also lost 2-1 at home to Bournemouth. Mikel Arteta said that the team will use the, quote, frustration, rage, and anger, unquote, from losing to fire up his team against PSG. So interesting. Everybody rotated on the weekend. Barcelona and Inter both found ways to win. PSG and Arsenal both found ways to lose. Going to be fascinating this week in Champions League. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. Other bits from the weekend. Trent Alexander-Arnold this morning, he announced that he is leaving Liverpool. No surprise. Expected to go to Real Madrid. Um, I'm curious to see how this affects both teams, honestly. I'm very curious to see how this affects everybody involved. Liverpool was able to keep Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah, but they couldn't keep Trent Alexander-Arnold. They're going to have to replace him. And how does Real Madrid, who we don't know who's going to be the manager next season yet, we don't know who the manager is going to be for the Club World Cup yet. We'll see how all of that goes for Trent Alexander-Arnold going to Madrid, reportedly, when his contract with Liverpool is done at the end of the season. In South Africa, the Orlando Pirates, who were knocked out in the semifinals of the African Champions League, they came from 1-0 down to beat Kaizer Chiefs, Kaizer Motong, Atlanta Chiefs legend, launching that club. Orlando Pirates beat them in the Soweto Derby in South Africa on Saturday. And speaking of the Atlanta Chiefs, sad news from the weekend. Peter McParland, one of the first signings for the Atlanta Chiefs in late 1966 for the 1967 season. He passed away over the weekend at 91 years old. Scored in both the semifinals and the final to lead the Atlanta Chiefs to the 1968 North American Soccer League Championship. Scored 5 goals to lead Northern Ireland at the 1958 World Cup, joint leader or second place in terms of scoring in the tournament. Scored both goals in the FA Cup final in 1957 for Aston Villa, led them to the title the last time they've lifted that trophy. Peter McParland, a legend for Aston Villa, a legend for the Northern Ireland national team, and a legend here in Atlanta. Spent 2 years with the Atlanta Chiefs, but the Chiefs don't win that league title without Peter McParland. So best wishes to his family and friends and fans in Great Britain. That'll do it for us for the Morning Espresso. We'll be back tomorrow with more soccer news from all over the planet. Thank you for watching and listening on the SDH Network, and thank you to our sponsor, Oglethorpe University.